What's happening, good people? Welcome to the channel. I'm Wes, aka Mr. Budget Watch, and today I'll be reviewing a Laco. Now this is the first Laco on the channel, and I picked this one up a while back from the Watch Gang wheel. So this did work out way cheaper than retail until I was stung by our ridiculous import fees, bringing it in line with about retail price in the UK anyway. So going through the review, I'll be talking about this in reference to the full retail price, as pretty much that is what I paid for it. Now if you're in the US and you do go on Watch Gang, you may be able to get it better than retail, so that's something to consider. So fun fact, this is actually the first German watch on the channel, though I'm not sure it's all made in Germany, like not all Swiss watches are fully made in Switzerland either. So let's take a closer look at this watch and go over all the good and bad of this Type B Flieger. So starting with the size, and this one measures in at 38.9mm in diameter. This goes up to 43.1 including the half onion style crown. Lug to lug is a very manageable and wearable 46.1mm. The lug width is 18 and it's 12.1mm thick without the strap. That does increase to 14.7 with it. The water resistance is a little bit of a letdown at 50 meters. 100 should be the minimum relay these days for a watch like this. The crystal is a flat sheet of sapphire with some clear AR. The case is 316L stainless steel that has been sandblasted, but more on that later. The crown is 6.9mm and is just a standard push-pull. Weight on the included strap is 76.5 gram, and speaking of, the strap is a grey nylon with matching hardware, but more on that in a little bit. So kicking things off with the pretty much non-existent bezel, which I actually think is part of the case. If you actually look at the side, it looks like a three-piece with the top ring bezel, mid case, and then of course the case back. This could be why it's only 50 meters water resistance, well that and the non-screw down crown. The bezel I think is press fit into place, but don't quote me on that. While we're on the side of the watch, it's actually pretty plain, no design flourish or real interest at all. The sandblasted finish is nice though, and the lugs do have a pleasant downturn, so there is that at least. The other side houses the onion, well half onion, push-pull crown. I actually like it, and it really suits this pilot style watch down to a T. It's plenty big enough and has good grip too, but again, more on that in a little bit. To the dial, and after the comments on my previous Type B review, has something I can never unsee, so thank you for that guys. I'm actually talking about the numbers. They are printed, clean and pretty much smudge free. Though you'll probably guess what I'm talking about, you'll have seen it already. Yup, the missing 0 next to the 5. This didn't bother me at first, but now you guys have mentioned it, I cannot unsee it, and it really has started to bug me. So again, thank you guys for that. On the plus side though, the numerals are large, easy to read and have a pleasant font. The minute track is pretty bold too and does stand out against that lovely blue dial. The minute track again, you know, is really nicely done, so props there. There's also a typical Type B inner ring that has the 12-hour time, which is again well done despite it being smaller. It's still really easy to read. Under the 12 o'clock you'll spot Laco printed, again done to a pretty good standard. The last bit of text flanks the larger rectangular baton down at the 6. Speaking of the batons, they're actually really well done, with thicker ones at the 3, 6 and 9 and thinner everywhere else. Finally, the triangle at the 12 is pretty much of the same, all done very well. The handset is loom filled and has a matte black surround. These are again done to a pretty good standard. They're plenty long enough and go exactly where you need them to. The second hand is pretty awesome though. It's kind of standard looking and a bit basic, but it's loomed, which is so cool and something you'll appreciate when I do the loom shot later on. Rounding out the dial, and something we'll have to talk about, is that blue Sunburst. It's awesome. I love the hue of blue that they've used, and it really has a beautiful shift from a dark to a middish navy blue, and then a little bit paler in some lighting situations. It's brilliant. And then again in some lighting situations it's really deep blue, so it's got plenty of character, and I just love how it shifts in different lighting conditions. To the final piece of the case, and that is the case back. So this is pop-off style, my absolute favourite by the way. Though it's probably one of the cleaner ones I've seen. It shares the same finish as the rest of the watch with some shallow engraved specs. The main attraction though is that big sapphire window. Yes, it is sapphire. Let's look at that non-Seiko movement, but more on that later. So up next is the biggest letdown of this watch, the strap. It's a NATO style and only has one sort of redeeming feature, the buckle. It's reasonably well done and it's branded too, but the rest is abysmal. The hardware is done in the same fashion as the buckle and the watch, but the finishing is very amateur to say the least, and the sandblasting hasn't really taken fuller. My cheap ones from AliExpress are done better, just for a prime example. And well, it's pretty much even more downhill from here. The nylon quality is mediocre at best, as it's not smooth or soft. The adjustment holes aren't heat treated and start to fray just after a few weeks of wear. The end of the strap is fraying too, and the stitch work on the inner side is pretty sloppy as well. If this watch was cheaper, I could perhaps overlook this, but at this price, definitely not. On a more positive note, we have a decent movement in the form of the Miyota 821A, not the 8215, a better version of that. This one actually has hacking, and it's way quieter and much nicer to look at than the 8215. Sorry Seiko fans, but it's even better looking than the NH35 too. But is it actually a better movement? Well, it has 42 hours of power reserve, hand and auto winding, a hacking seconds, a nicely done rotor, a decorated finish. It's 21,600 beats per hour and has an accuracy on par with the Seiko at -22 plus 40 seconds per day. So apart from the better finishing, it's pretty much on par with said Seiko. How is it in action though? Well, it's actually just as good as the Seiko. It's nice and smooth, easy to use, and very, very nice when you're adjusting it. It basically, like I said, feels the same as the Seiko, just as good. So very, very impressive there. So it's actually refreshing to see something different to the NH35, and in reality it's pretty much same apart from, like I've mentioned already. The crown is another really good bonus. It's plenty big enough, has great grip, and it makes this watch very, very easy to use on a daily basis. And with it being push-pull as well, it's very easy to use in that regard as well. So that out of the way, let's talk comfort, and the strap again is a real downer. It's fatiguing on my wrist and I really don't like it at all. Once the review is over, it's definitely coming off and going straight into the watch box where it belongs. On other straps though, it's way better. The size of this watch as well is just about bang on as well for my 6-inch wrists. If you have bigger wrists than myself, then they do actually do a larger version of this, so that's probably one you'd want to consider. It's basically the same watch. So the size of this one is just about perfect, like I said. We don't get any overhang and it just fits really nice. It does look a little bit bigger than it actually is because of the lack of bezel and a larger dial, giving the appearance of making it, you know, look a bit bigger on wrist. But it still really does fit nicely. The case hugs very well and the downturn lugs get really nicely utilised if you opt for a different strap. It kind of gets ruined by the NATO and how they sit on wrist, but you know, you guys know how NATOs wear by now. So what I would do is, if you're going to buy one of these, do yourself a favour, take off the strap, keep it in new condition, and then just put it on something better. You'll thank me for that. To round out the review, let's quickly talk lume, and this one is using C3 in a pretty generous amount. It's bright, it lasts a fair old while, and it's very neatly done. It's also so legible thanks to that lume seconds hand and also the generous lume everywhere else on the dial. Is it the best I've ever seen? No, it's not, but it is very, very impressive. So as a whole, the Aachen is a solid if not amazing watch. It does get a lot right and does have some good qualities such as the lume, dial and case. The strap should have never been put on a watch at £310 and should be relegated to something else that doesn't cost as much, or probably even a bin where it actually does belong. I know that's a little bit harsh, but it is really that bad. Strap aside, it is a good watch. The movement choice is solid and there's a lot to like about it. However, it seems a lot of this cost is in the name, and the retail price from Laco is just a little bit too much, and it's actually even more expensive from other places. So it is a bitter pill to swallow in regards to its price point. With maybe a second bundled leather strap of higher quality, then I'd be more inclined to say, you know what, I think that 310 is just about worth it. But as it's the only strap that you get, I think it's a little bit too much, and it definitely could do with a bit of a price cut. Do you agree? Thanks for watching the video. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't already, like the video if you enjoyed it, hit that notification bell so you don't miss any uploads, and of course follow me on social media at Mr. Budget Watch. Thanks again, I'll see you soon.